I have a problem where I won't watch a movie unless I already know something about it. A 3-sentence summary of its plot might sound interesting to me, but I'm not going to hit play unless I've heard about it on Twitter or read an article that piqued my interest. Sometimes the buzz about a movie is off-putting, the wrong people are gushing about it. And that's what happened with The Social Dilemma, a Silicon Valley tech company's original documentary about the dangers of other Silicon Valley tech companies. I saw rave reviews highlighting its urgent message and saw some people say it made them view their relationships with their phones and social media in an entirely new way. It turns out, I was told, that our phones might be bad for us. Because of my enormous brain and my advanced ability to observe the world around me, I long suspected this might be the case. You see, I can't sleep because I'm looking at my phone late at night, and I can't sit in silence because I need to be listening to a podcast at all times, and I can't read anymore because I just don't have the attention span. That's right, Netflix, this genius is way ahead of you. So even though I already knew everything it was going to tell me, something compelled me to watch this movie anyway. One of the main points The Social Dilemma makes is that our society is being torn apart by polarization and social division, primarily driven by algorithmically curated news feeds that use increasingly radical content to keep users' attention. In support of this point, we see two clips from Senator Marco Rubio and then Senator Jeff Flake. Both give reasonable-sounding speeches that align with the thesis of the film.
We are a nation of people who have stopped being friends with people because of who they voted for in the last election. We are a nation of people who have isolated ourselves to only watch channels that tell us that we're right.
My message here today is that tribalism is ruining us. It is tearing our country apart. It is no way for sane adults to act.
You don't have to be particularly plugged into US politics to recognize these guys as high-profile Republicans. You would have to know that yourself, though, because the lower thirds that accompany each speaker in this movie only identify them as senators, no mention of party affiliation. On its face, this actually fits with the message of this section of the film. It's not about which side of the aisle this is coming from. In fact, marking a D or an R could actually be seen as the filmmakers tipping their hand. All we need to know is that these are two elected officials concerned with the direction of our country. But in its attempt at impartiality, the movie falters and undercuts the actually important point the movie is trying to make, and in some places does. I absolutely understand that these major Silicon Valley tech companies are designing their products to use us as a means to an end rather than treating us as an end in ourselves. Our psychologies are absolutely being exploited to maximize our attention and to incept their ability to change our behavior at the whims of the highest bidder. That's messed up. That's also easily enough inferred with a materialist analysis, but if it's of more rhetorical use to have former employees reveal the darkest secrets of Silicon Valley on camera, then go ahead. But when you get too far into the social division, polarization, and political extremism discourse without a firm ideological grounding, you're jeopardizing that very real point. Addie Robertson points out in her review of the movie for The Verge that pinning all of the blame on personalized content algorithms is actually also missing the point. It should be mentioned that some of the most extreme examples of internet-inspired violence and radicalization, like the 2019 Christchurch mosque shooting, 2015 Oregon mass shooting, 2018 Tree of Life synagogue killings, and the 2012 Norwegian mass murders, are A, all right-wing, and B, incubated on forum sites like 8chan, 4chan, Gab, and Stormfront. We're dealing with some of the slipperiest and evilest forces out there, which is why it's super important to be very clear about what you're saying. Condemning radicalization in and of itself isn't a particularly coherent or meaningful point. You have to examine who's discouraging a significant departure from the status quo and figure out why they might be doing that. Saying both sides have gone too far is a statement that only serves conservative ideology. This movie isn't just a series of talking head interviews, although it probably should have been. There's also a truly bizarre fictional narrative element that Joker-fies me more and more every time I think about it. Its purpose is to ground the sweeping societal analysis presented by the interviews by showing a Netflix average American family dealing with smartphone addiction and newsfeed radicalization. The family is cut from the same cloth as TV's Modern Family, ambiguously affluent and suburban in the way everyone in a commercial is, for example. The star of the show is Ben, played by Skylar Gisondo, who, by the way, is excellent in The Righteous Gemstones, a show that far more accurately diagnoses America's existential sickness, in my opinion. He's a high school kid whose smartphoneless older sister has convinced their mom of the hold their phones have on their attention. Mom collects everyone's devices as they sit down for dinner and puts them in a time-locked plastic cookie jar. Almost instantly, the withdrawal is too intense for Ben's younger sister to handle. She gets up from the dinner table and smashes the box with a wrench to get at her phone. This is all played completely straight. I think you could have a much subtler, more realistic, and more effective dramatic throughline in a movie like this that doesn't look like an after-school special shot on an Arri Alexa.
Oh my God.
This isn't even scratching the surface of how bonkers the story gets, though. The mom challenges Ben to go a whole month without using his phone, and he accepts, thinking it'll be no problem. This, dear viewer, is an example of dramatic irony. You see, we've been listening to a bunch of confident Silicon Valley insiders tell us how tech companies are manipulating our minds to keep us addicted to our phones, so we know this won't be quite so easy. Ben lasts 3 days until the triplet AI Pete Campbells who live in his phone, a real plotline, somehow rope him back in with a notification about his ex now dating his best friend.
What? Bam, we're back. Let's get back to making money, boys.
It's not clear if the Digi-Petes who represent Facebook's algorithms are lying about that, or if they physically manipulated reality to get them to hook up, or if it's just a poorly written coincidence. Whatever the case, it doesn't matter, because the second Ben picks up his phone, he instantly goes down an entirely different rabbit hole. This is the part of the movie that's really a wild ride. Ben spends hours that night watching videos from a political group called the Extreme Center. This group is meant to represent radical politics, a completely meaningless term that serves only to wink at the viewer, implying that it's bad. We never get to know anything about the Extreme Center. No goals are ever stated and no policy positions are ever outlined. Well, actually, that's not quite true. As Ben scrolls through his phone, we see some examples of the Extreme Center's propaganda, images that only say, "Don't vote." That's the dangerous idea this group supports, not voting. Could you even imagine someone using their social media platform to spread such a notion? You can tell that the Extreme Center personalities that Ben follows are meant to be an amalgamation of left-wing protest movements like Antifa and right-wing shitheads like the Proud Boys, except the aesthetic of the vloggers he watches are distinctly right-wing to my eye. We get the tropes of the guy speaking to his front-facing camera in a parked car saying he'll do anything, and I mean anything, to fight for the things I believe in, which I'm not going to explain, as well as the webcam desk guy. Nothing quite so aesthetically pleasing yet charmingly independent as Harbinger Productions, of course. Ben spends more and more time getting sucked into these videos, neglecting soccer practice and raising the concern of his older sister.
Ben, I'm serious. Stuff is bad for you. You should go to soccer practice.
At the end of the movie, we cut from actual footage of Heather Heyer's murderer driving through that crowd in Charlottesville directly to Ben attending a fictional rally. Protesters are seen carrying signs that say, "No vote, no problem," "I quit," "Fight for the center," and "Doubt the truth." For some reason, Ben is knocked to the ground and handcuffed by the police, along with his sister who followed him out of concern. Multiple aspects of this movie make me feel like I'm living in an NPR TED Talk Twilight Zone. Protest and direct action are derided regardless of their aims as acts in and of themselves. It's patronizing and insulting, portraying conflict without context. It says conflict itself is the problem, not a result of injustice. It's still wild to me that they essentially typed "violent protest" into Getty Images and stitched together a highlight reel mixing together anti-vax and white supremacists and Hong Kong protesters and France protesters and their own extremists who don't like voting to give the impression that everyone's going a little crazy from being on the computer so much. These tech companies are absolutely a problem. They absolutely wield undue influence on us individually and as a collective. Uber essentially just wrote its own legislation in California with the passing of Prop 22, using some of the exact same social engineering techniques gestured at in this documentary, even though the main dude who talks a lot throughout the movie seems to really like Uber specifically.
I can hit a button on my phone and a car shows up in 30 seconds and I can go exactly where I need to go. That is magic. That's amazing.
The interviewees know there's a problem too. That's why they're in the movie. They're occasionally quite persuasive at times, and together they present a dire case that I also believe needs to be addressed. It's important. But what do they suggest?
And that is why I think we need regulation. We could tax data collection and processing.
I think we need to accept that it's okay for companies to be focused on making money. What's not okay is when there's no regulation, no rules, and no competition.
It's just the business model that has a problem.
The political prescriptions called for in this film are laughably toothless. Its ideology betrayed by distasteful dramatizations and an out-of-sync call to action. You can't regulate being used as a means to an end. You're either treated with dignity or you're not. As long as these companies' interests run counter to the public's, there's a problem. Technology has advanced to the point to where we now have this extreme, relatable example of an industry dominating us so completely. But this was and is always going to be the relationship. That relationship won't ever change until one of us is destroyed.
They walk right past me.
What?